Ukraine, Japan Defense Pact, stuns Moscow. It is Friday, February 6, 2026. And we are looking at a tectonic shift in global security. A nation that has defined itself by constitutional pacifism for 80 years has just stepped up.
And in a big way.
A really big way. To become a critical shield for Europe. I mean, the lines on the map are being redrawn, and frankly, the speed of this is just startling. Before we dive into exactly how this happened and, what it means for the front lines in the Donbass, I have to ask you to do one thing. If you support Ukraine, if you support freedom and justice, subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports.
It really helps us keep doing this.
It absolutely does. We need your support. Join me in the latest program by Defense Report for the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover, the just negotiated agreement on the transfer of defense equipment and technology, or EDIA, between Japan and Ukraine.
A huge deal.
We're going to unpack how Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi is accelerating a military buildup that has the Kremlin scrambling, and why Japanese tech is suddenly the backbone of Ukraine's defense strategy.
It's an incredible story.
We're looking at how the Iron Lady of Japan is linking the security of the Indo-Pacific directly to the battlefields of Ukraine, and why this technological merger is, it's Vladimir Putin's nightmare.
Okay, let's unpack this. We've seen Japan sending aid before helmets, vests, humanitarian supplies, but reading through the documents on this new pact, this feels heavier.
It is entirely different. What we are seeing in early 2026 is the culmination of a massive strategic pivot. You mentioned the ETTA.
Right, the agreement on the transfer of defense equipment and technology.
That isn't just a memo. This is the legal framework that basically tears down the firewall that kept Japanese military tech out of active war zones for generations.
I want to pause on that firewall for a second, because for listeners who haven't followed Japanese politics for the last 50 years, Japan had very strict rules.
That's incredibly strict. They couldn't just sell weapons to whoever they wanted.
Exactly. It goes back to the 3 principles on arms exports. For decades, Japan effectively banned the export of lethal equipment. It was a pillar of their post-war identity.
So they could sell cars, they could sell PlayStations.
But they could not sell bullets. That started to erode a little under former Prime Minister Abe, but under the current Prime Minister, Sanai Takaichi, who people are rightfully calling the Iron Lady, that erosion has become a landslide.
A landslide's a good word for it.
She's effectively saying that the old rules just don't apply when the global order is burning.
But isn't that a hard sell domestically? I mean, you're asking Japanese taxpayers, who are used to a pacifist constitution, to fund military tech for a war in Europe? How is she justifying this? It sounds like political suicide.
It would be if the threat was abstract. But Tokyo doesn't view this as charity for Ukraine anymore. It comes down to a single, pretty terrifying realization in Tokyo.
Which is?
The doctrine is simply, Ukraine today, maybe East Asia tomorrow.
I've heard that phrase floating around. It's catchy, sure, but is it actually driving policy?
Absolutely, 100%. Look at the evidence. Japan sees Russia's aggression in Europe not as some isolated event, but as the opening move in a global challenge. They see Russia, China, and North Korea tightening their cooperation.
Right, I remember that meeting in December.
Exactly. December 2025, you had that strategic security consultation between China's Wang Yi and Russia's Sergei Shoigu.
And they weren't just talking about trade tariffs or pipelines.
No. Not at all. They explicitly targeted Japanese militarism in their joint statements. The axis of Russia, China, North Korea is getting tighter.
So North Korea is sending shells to Russia, China is sending dual-use tech.
And Japan realizes that if Russia wins in Ukraine, it emboldens China in the Taiwan Strait and North Korea on the peninsula. So in Takaichi's view, defending Kiev is effectively defending Tokyo.
That is a fascinating, if terrifying, connection. It's like the theaters of war have merged into one big problem.
Yeah.
But let's get into the hardware. What is Japan actually sending? Because if we're talking about a defense pact, I assume we aren't talking about blankets anymore.
We certainly are not. The new agreement rests on 4 pillars designed specifically for what Ukraine needs to survive the current Russian onslaught.
Okay, what's pillar 1?
The first is counter-drone systems. Japan is a world leader in sensors and electronics. They are providing the tech to help Ukraine integrate defenses against those endless waves of Russian loitering munitions.
Which is huge. I mean, the sheer volume of drone strikes has been the biggest headache for Ukrainian air defense this winter.
Exactly. But the second pillar is where it gets really interesting. Maritime domain awareness.
Wait, hold on. Maritime awareness. The kinetic war is happening in the trenches of the Donbass. The Russian Black Sea Fleet has been, pushed back. Why is Japan prioritizing radar for the sea?
Because that's the economic lifeline. Japan is an island nation. They understand shipping lanes better than anyone. They're providing coastal radar to protect the grain corridors.
Ah, of course.
If those ships can't move, Ukraine's economy flatlines. So Japan is securing the wallet, not just the trench.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's economic defense. What else?
Third is cybersecurity, specifically protecting energy infrastructure from Russian hacks, which have been relentless. And fourth is logistics and maintenance.
Right, the less sexy stuff.
It's not sexy, no, but ensuring the equipment Ukraine already has doesn't break down is absolutely vital.
But here's where it gets really interesting for me. I was reading the notes on space intel. This sounds straight out of a sci-fi novel. Japan is letting Ukraine see through clouds.
This is one of the most impactful parts of the partnership, and it's happening right now. It involves a partnership between HUR, Ukrainian military intelligence, and a Japanese startup called IQPS.
IQPS. And what do?
They are using SAR satellites.
SAR. Explain that to us like we're five.
Okay, so think of a normal optical satellite, like a really high-tech camera in the sky.
Right. Needs light.
It needs light to take a picture. If there are clouds or smoke, or if it's just nighttime, that camera is blind. SAR synthetic aperture radar is different. Think of it like a bat using echolocation.
Not bad.
Yes. The satellite screams radio waves at the ground, and then it listens for the echo. It doesn't care if it's pitch black. It doesn't care if there's a storm. It creates an image based on the bounce back.
So the fog of war isn't actually foggy anymore.
Precisely. Since April 2025, Japan has been providing imagery that detects Russian troop movements, even when they are hiding under camouflage nets or moving at night.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. Russia has satellites too. They have their own radar tech. Is a startup from Japan really changing the game, or is this just a nice PR story?
It's a fair question, but here's the difference. Agility. The Russian systems are bulky, military-grade dinosaurs. This Japanese startup, IQPS, they're launching swarms of small, cheap satellites. Yeah, it's not about having one big eye in the sky. It's about having 50 small ones that revisit the same spot every hour. It's the frequency of the data that's killing the Russian movements. This was absolutely critical because, if you recall, there were some temporary hurdles in U.S. intelligence sharing in early 2025.
And Japan stepped into that gap.
If they stepped right in.
That is a massive capability upgrade. It changes the entire calculation for a Russian general if they can't hide in the dark. Let's shift focus to the leadership driving this. You keep mentioning the Iron Lady, Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, elected October 2025. Who is she really? Is she just Shinzo Abe 2.0?
She is a protege of the late Shinzo Abe, yes, but she has taken his hawkishness to a level he never quite reached. She was elected on a platform of making Japan a normal military power again.
But she's tougher.
She's tougher. She's willing to break taboos. In January 2026, just last month, her cabinet approved a record defense budget.
How much are we talking?
$58 billion. That's about 9 trillion yen. But the real headline isn't just the amount, it's the speed.
The speeds.
Japan had a goal to hit 2% of GDP spending for defense, which is the NATO standard, by 2027. Takaichi accelerated that. She wants to hit it by March 2026.
That is incredibly fast for a government bureaucracy. Usually these things take years of committee meetings. She's moving the goalposts closer by a full 2 years.
She's sprinting. She's pushing a strategy called deterrence by denial.
Deterrence by denial. What's that?
Basically, making Japan so prickly and well-defended that no one dares attack it. And she's revising national security documents to allow for counterstrike capabilities weapons that can hit enemy bases, not just shoot down incoming missiles.
Which is a massive psychological change for a country whose constitution technically renounced war. That's not just defense, that's offense.
It is. And she knows Japan can't do it alone. She is strengthening ties with NATO, with the IP4, that's Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and South Korea, and, of course, Ukraine.
And the UK as well, I read.
In fact, just this month, February 2026, she agreed to a 2+2 meeting with the UK to synchronize support for Ukraine. She is building a global coalition.
It really feels like she's trying to establish that Japan is a manufacturer of security, not just a consumer of it. But I want to pivot to something that often gets overlooked.
Yeah.
The land itself. Ukraine is the breadbasket of the world, but right now, so much of it is full of explosives.
This is the tragedy of the conflict, but also where Japanese innovation are shining. We are talking about the innovation loop. Japan hosted the Ukraine Mine Action Conference, or USE, in 2025, and the problem they were tackling is just staggering.
What are the numbers?
About 25% of Ukraine was contaminated with mines or unexploded ordnance. And get this, 90% of that contaminated land is farmland.
90%. That's devastating. You can't plant wheat in a minefield.
No, you can't. But Japan is bringing what they call the nexus approach. It's where Japanese robotics meet Ukrainian AI.
Give us the tech specs. What are they using?
One of the standout technologies is called ALIS. It's a dual sensor detector that can visualize what's underground, distinguishing between a piece of shrapnel and an actual mine. Then you have these DMRs, mine clearing robots that use compressed air excavation.
Compressed air excavation. So
Yeah.
they just blow the mines up.
No, they do the opposite. Imagine a dentist's air tool, but industrial size. The robot shoots a concentrated jet of air into the dirt. It liquefies the soil and sucks it away, leaving the mine sitting there, exposed, without triggering the pressure plate. It's surgical.
Wow. So it's like archaeology, but at high speed with military robots. That is brilliant.
It is, and the synergy is fascinating. You have Ukrainian companies like UA Damage using drones and AI to map the minefields from the air.
So they create the digital map?
They create the map, then the Japanese robots go in to do the surgical removal. Deputy Defense Minister Serhiy Boev called this a strategic platform. It's not just aid, it's combining Ukrainian battlefield innovation with Japanese industrial precision.
And that technology, once perfected in Ukraine, could be used anywhere in the world. It's a grim testing ground, but the results are going to save lives for decades.
Exactly. And it reinforces the idea that Japan is committed to the reconstruction of Ukraine, not just the war effort. They are thinking about the day after.
Now, zooming out to the biggest piece of hardware on the board. We've talked about drones and satellites, but Japan is also looking at the skies in a much bigger way. They aren't just buying jets anymore, are they?
No, they're building the next generation. This is the Global Combat Air Program, or GCTAP. It's a massive joint venture between Japan, the UK, and Italy. In 2025, they formed a joint venture company called Edgewing.
Edgewing. Sounds fast.
Mm.
But why does a jet that won't be ready until 2035 matter for the war in Ukraine today?
Because of the industrial implications. To make this happen, Japan had to relax its export rules significantly in March 2024 and then even further in 2025. This allows the jet they are building to be sold to third countries.
So Japan is becoming a global arms dealer.
Arms player is probably the diplomatic term, but
Yeah.
yes. This signals that Japan is entering the global defense market as a major exporter. But here is the geopolitical hook. By building this jet with the UK and Italy, Japan is physically and industrially locking its security to Europe.
Explain that connection for us.
Well, if Japan is building the planes that defend London and Rome, then London and Rome have a vested interest in defending Tokyo. It ties into the Europeanization of Indo-Pacific security.
And all of them have a vested interest in stopping Russia.
A huge vested interest. Because a loss for NATO in Ukraine weakens the very alliance that Japan now relies on.
It's a web, a mesh network of defense where you can't pull on one string without moving the whole thing.
Precisely. And Putin knows this. That's why that Japan Defense Pact stuns Moscow headline is real. He was banking on the West getting tired. He was banking on Japan staying quiet and pacifist. Instead, he has awakened an industrial giant that is now pouring its tech into his adversary's hands.
It's the classic case of strategic backfire. He wanted less NATO, he got more. He wanted a passive Asia, he got the Iron Lady.
And that is the crux of it. The support Japan is providing, the satellites, the counter-drone tech, the demining robots, it shifts the balance on the ground right now in 2026. But the policy shifts Takaichi is making shift the balance for the next 50 years.
So to sum this up, Japan has woken up. The Iron Lady Takaichi has firmly placed Japan in Ukraine's corner, viewing the defeat of Russia as essential for stopping China. The technology transfer is real, it's high-tech, and it's happening as we speak. But I want to leave you with a thought to mull over. We spent 80 years thinking of the world in separate theaters, Europe, Asia, the Middle East. But if Japan, a nation that swore off war, now sees the defense of a city in Eastern Europe as vital to the survival of Tokyo, what does that tell us about the reality of the threat?
It tells us that the map has shrunk. Distance no longer equals safety.
The lines on the map between Europe and Asia have effectively vanished. The fight for freedom is now a single global front. You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. And before you go, please, subscribe to Defense Reports, your trusted source for timely, in-depth military and defense analysis. We'll see you next time. Keep supporting us so we can continue bringing you the latest developments from Ukraine and around the world.